History is starting to repeat itself with the Manchester United manager. Erik Ten Hag seems to have gone beyond the point of no return as Man United manager less than 2 years into his reign. Erik Ten Hag is still reluctant to approach the away end when it might have marked the highlight of his afternoon at Bournemouth. There was not a whiff of mutiny from the 1,304 supporters in the East Stand. They chanted, "United, United, United," applauded the players and serenaded Bruno Fernandes. Casemiro gifted his shirt to a young fan, having gifted space to Bournemouth's midfielders. United's fans also proclaimed themselves as members of Ten Hag's army and going to Wembley on Sunday. Hopefully, they will be there again on May 25 for the FA Cup final. Ten Hag will not need reminding that the last time United lifted the FA Cup, their Dutch manager was sacked 50 hours later. What he may not be aware of is that Louis van Gaal was booed when he received the FA Cup from David de Gea. The United squad were still stood in front of the Wembley Royal box when it was Van Gaal's turn. The boos were not widespread, but they were audible when he appeared on the big screen. Van Gaal was in denial and delusional. His wife, Truus, knew he would be sacked before he did. "I knew Louis would be fired by Manchester United. I felt it," Truus says in the documentary Van Gaal. "We had a small boardroom there and it was always fun with the old Manchester legends, Ferguson, Bobby Charlton. We had a table there with good food and drinks. Suddenly, they stopped greeting us, just waved from afar. Something was wrong. It was female intuition. Then when the man, Ed Woodward, denies it, Louis accepts it. I said, 'Louis, you're going to be fired. Get wise to it.' And I slammed the door of the apartment shut." Van Gaal admonished his wife in the aftermath of the cup final for informing him of the BBC's report detailing his imminent sacking. This correspondent wrote 3 months earlier that Jose Mourinho had a gentleman's agreement to take over, and several other credible stories charted Van Gaal's probable dismissal. Even after a high-profile associate of Ed Woodward leaked the story to the BBC, Van Gaal still entered the Wembley press conference room with the FA Cup. "I show you the cup and I don't discuss it with my friends of the media, who have already sacked me for 6 months, Van Gaal bragged. Time is a great healer. When Van Gaal was on punditry duty at United's 0-0 draw with Liverpool at Anfield in October 2017, the Dutch broadcasters were positioned in front of the away section in the Anfield Road end. Van Gaal was warmly greeted. During the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, he buried the hatchet with a Manchester-based reporter he insulted. Wayne Rooney penned a foreword in Van Gaal's book and was the United representative on his documentary. Rooney speaks glowingly about Van Gaal, tactically the best manager he worked with. He was also a manager he wanted to have replaced at the end of the 2015-16 season. Rooney's preference was Ryan Giggs. Van Gaal told Michael Carrick he would be released 11 days before the FA Cup final. De Gea intended to seek a transfer if Van Gaal stayed on. Even with the David Moyes precedent of failing to qualify for the Champions League sealing the United manager's fate, Van Gaal's head stayed in the sand. Renato Sanchez's sudden transfer from Benfica to Bayern Munich was spun as Van Gaal did not want him. That was a smokescreen as United refused to publicly undermine Van Gaal amid Mourinho's inevitable arrival. Mourinho later admitted his late appointment scuppered a move for Sanchez. Van Gaal was first booed when he approached the Stretford end after the listless 1-0 defeat to Southampton in January 2016. Moyes endured the ignominy of the wrong one, Moyes out banner flying overhead, and, in front of the Elton John stand, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was not still standing when he approached the away days at Watford. He was booed. Ten Hag has not been subjected to such treatment. When he conducted his pre-match chat with MUTV at Stamford Bridge, he was warmly applauded. Connecting with those who trekked down the M6 to Selhurst Park and the Amex Stadium would do his image no harm. Neither would throwing expendable players under the bus, Anthony Marshall. Yet there have been eerie parallels between Van Gaal and Ten Hag for most of the season. Ten Hag's press conference walkout on Saturday was not as memorable as Van Gaal's wine and mince pie valediction, but he ignored an awkward question that raised United's comparable form with the Moyes season. Failure to qualify for the Champions League could precede another FA Cup final appearance, though the odds of United lifting it for a 13th time are not as auspicious as their 1990 rematch with Crystal Palace 8 years ago. Coventry are capable of unsettling them, and if United have to schedule fittings for new Paul Smith suits on May 25, City have had their number in both derbies this season. Chelsea have beaten 4 of the top 7 and are unbeaten against City and Arsenal this season. Whatever United's results at Wembley, Ten Hag is duty-bound to acknowledge their travelling supporters. It may be the last time he sees them. Sir Jim Ratcliffe is facing a problem the Glazers have never had at Manchester United. Erik Ten Hag's position as Man United manager is becoming more and more uncertain, meaning Sir Jim Ratcliffe may be forced into taking decisive action. Following Saturday's 2-2 draw with Bournemouth, Manchester United have a maximum of 8 games left this season. For Erik Ten Hag, they could well amount to his final 8 games as United manager. The weekend stalemate at the Vitality Stadium was another mark against his chances of keeping his job beyond the end of this season. As a result of Aston Villa's 2-0 win at Arsenal on Sunday, United are now 13 points shy of the top 4 with just 18 points to play for. The Champions League theme tune will almost certainly not be played by the Old Trafford compare next season. With United's Premier League campaign now in danger of petering out, there is also a danger the Europa League theme tune will not be played either. The Reds have won just 1 of their last 7 Premier League games and are winless in 4. Though Ten Hag still has a chance of winning a second trophy in as many seasons at Old Trafford, it is becoming increasingly hard to argue against Sir Jim Ratcliffe not making a change in the dugout. Ratcliffe, who secured minority ownership in February, has wasted no time in making sweeping changes in the boardroom, meaning it would be no surprise to see him make a change in the dugout. As reported by the Manchester Evening News at the end of February, Ineos have already analysed potential replacements for Ten Hag. Based on what has happened since the March international break, you cannot blame them. Since the pause, United have played 4, lost 1 and drawn 3. If they don't get their first post-international break win on the board against Coventry City at Wembley, it will be nigh on impossible for even the most staunch Ten Hag supporter to continue backing him. While results, of course, are the bread and butter for any manager, it is United's performances throughout the season that have asked the most questions of Ten Hag. It is no secret that an unprecedented injury crisis has played its part in the club's regression, but it was clear from the very start of the season that something was not right. Everyone is aware of the bombardment United's goal is constantly under, with Bournemouth's tally of 20 shots meaning they have now faced 107 in their last 4 matches. Ten Hag has played that concern down while Diogo Dalot contradicted him when asked about the problem. Based on United's uninspiring style of play and their worsening performance levels, it is beginning to feel inevitable that Ratcliffe will decide to make a change. But if Ratcliffe does decide to pull the trigger, who does he turn to? It is a question nobody has an immediate answer to. There is not an obvious, standout candidate. Gareth Southgate has been heavily linked with the post, but is not worthy of commanding such a high-profile position, despite his good work with England. Roberto De Zerbi is yet to prove he is qualified enough for the role. In the past, United, when deciding or needing to make a change, have had their ducks in a row, instantly being able to appoint a big name, such as Jose Mourinho or Louis van Gaal. Ten Hag was also the overriding favourite to succeed Ralf Rangnick in 2022, with it always felt he was far more likely to land the job than Mauricio Pochettino, who was also in the frame for quite some time. Back in 2013, Sir Alex Ferguson recommended that David Moyes should replace him following his retirement. It marked another instance where the Glazers had a relatively simple decision to make. For Ratcliffe, who has secured control of football operations, selecting a potential replacement for Ten Hag will not be so simple. Despite Ineos' fondness of Southgate, they should sense that appointing him would not wash with the fans. Looking at the managerial landscape as it is now, Thomas Tuchel, who will leave Bayern Munich at the end of this season, may be the only coach available who commands the tag of being an elite-level coach, and even his stock has fallen somewhat this season. Ratcliffe may be left with no choice but to make a change in the coming weeks, but selecting a replacement will be no straightforward task. A big decision, one way or another, needs to be made.